Hi everyone, welcome to GTS Distributions Come and Play Day here in Seattle. My name is Rodney Smith, and I've been joined by Will from Privateer Press.
Hello.
Hey Will, how you doing?
Fine.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
And you've brought another game in the Level 7 series. Now this is a product that you guys have been developing for some time, right?
Yes.
In this storyline. Tell me, we've got something new. What's happening
So this
here?
is game 3. The
Right.
first one was Level 7 Escape, then last year was Level 7 Omega Protocol, and this one is Level 7 Invasion.
Okay.
So every game in the series has explored the setting in a slightly different way and in a slightly different scope. The first game was about basically running down a dark hallway, scared and alone. The second game was a little bit bigger. You were a team of commandos fighting, and you got a lot more of what was going on in the setting. And in this third game, we've blown the scope out a lot, and we're fighting for the survival of the planet.
Right. That's why we're seeing the whole map here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's big. And there's other pieces as well. Like, aside from the map, we have, these are individual player boards, right?
Yes, every player has a console, is what that's called, and some cards and stuff that determines how his coalition works, because you play as a coalition of surviving Earth governments trying to hold everything together against this invasion.
Okay. And they're not all equal, right? I think when we were talking earlier, you mentioned to me there's asynchronous.
Yes.
Right?
Every coalition has its own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
That North American one right there, you can see, especially if you compare it to other stuff.
Yeah.
But North America gets the most income in the game. They have all the money. They also have the biggest standing army when the game starts, but they've been targeted in the initial waves of the invasion so much that a lot of their other things are a bit weaker.
Okay.
Like, they're a little easier for the aliens to take over. They start out with the smallest health, which is what this great big dial represents. It's an abstraction of your workforce and your factories and all that kind of stuff. That's why it's called military industrial complex.
Well, I'm glad you pointed the dials here, because I thought this was pretty interesting. These are all moving dials to keep track of your information. Now, what was the decision here to go with the dials?
It was partially visuals. We wanted to go with something that looked like it could be on an iPad type device.
Right, like I'm sitting here and I'm like...
Yeah. But we also just wanted the player to not be overwhelmed by the amount of information they had to keep track of, because there's a lot of other stuff in the game that's going on, cards and tokens and other stuff. And this was a way to keep track of things that incrementally change during the game without you having to fiddle with a bunch of change, basically.
Tokens being swapped around and in and out, from these different pools. Right, that makes a lot of sense. Now, is this, are we fighting against each other as coalitions, or working together?
This game returns to the semi-cooperativeness aspects of the setting that we introduced in Escape, the first game.
Okay.
So the second game did have an active human player being the bad guys versus the 5 commando players. But in this game, we want to put you all back in the same boat, basically.
Okay.
So each coalition is, in theory, working as cooperatively as possible with all the others. And the board controls the elements of the invasion force and all the bad stuff that's happening.
You said in theory.
Well, it's semi-cooperative in the extent that some player choices are involved in what happens with the bad guys.
Right.
The event card system and a few other things. So there, you might get an event card that says the whole world can be hit a little bit, or one specific person can be hit harder. And if you're teetering on the brink of losing, you don't want that possibility of that whole world a little bit. And if that card basically says it's targeting someone other than you, you can choose that choice, and it will hurt your friend and not you.
Right.
And hopefully you don't need your friend as much to still win. Because the other core aspect that we put in the game to encourage that semi-cooperative play is you don't officially win unless you're alive at the end.
Okay.
Individual coalitions can fall before the game ends, and those players did not technically win. Even if the whole world succeeded and the invasion was stopped, you lost. Your government doesn't exist at the end to rebuild the world, so you didn't really win.
Makes it hard to feel like a win.
Yes.
If you no longer exist here.
Yeah.
One thing I'm kind of dying to get to here are the miniatures that I'm seeing on, and this is only a fraction of them we've laid out here, right?
This is a tiny fraction.
But I also noticed we have this character here.
Yes.
How does this tie into the story, into the game? What's going on?
So people that are familiar with the setting will recognize that as Dr. Chronos.
Okay.
Dr. Chronos is the bad guy in the first 2 games. He's the leader of the Gin aliens. They showed up on Earth. They have this nefarious plot. I've been working with the government. In the first game, he wants to catch you and put you back in his lab. In the second game, he wants to stop you from defeating him. In this game, we've introduced a different alien race that Chronos was at war with and lost. So he's a refugee from a war that was fought over a couple hundred years all throughout the galaxy.
Okay.
So when this race shows up, they've been hunting him and they want to get rid of him. And they start basically indiscriminately bombing the planet. And Chronos is the only hope to defeat them, but he needs humanity to keep him alive. So he does a little bit of a flip-flop, and basically that enemy of my enemy is my
friend
situation. So he's now on the side of humanity because everybody's going to die at the same.
Yeah. Okay. Is he controlled by everybody, or how does
he basically controls the first player?
Yeah.
And how ties are broken in the game, and he's the main course for victory.
Okay.
So there are a series of cards in the game called the Chronos Project. There are 7 of them, and that is how you win. If you complete those 7 cards and survive the very last push of the invasion, then you have won.
All right. So that's our objective. That's what we're working towards here. Okay. And so, do we have an example of one of these cards?
So this is one of the North American cards. 6 of the cards belong to specific coalitions.
Right.
The reason that's important is Dr. Chronos moves around the board. He has to be in that coalition for that card to be funded.
Oh, okay.
So he starts in South America, that's where the first card is.
Right.
And then the second card is actually 2 cards.
Yes.
You can make 2A or 2B after that first card, and he has to be in North America or Africa for those 2 cards. And you do have to complete both 2A and 2B, but you can do them in either order.
So I suppose it's another situation where the players might be trying to coordinate. Let's get him over here to me first.
Yes.
It's going to be more convenient for me to get this done.
Yeah.
And you have to negotiate a little bit there, right?
Well, and also each of those Chronos project cards gives him or the group a new ability.
Oh,
the first few make him move faster and that kind of stuff. So the decision process of which cards do we do in what order also comes into it by the state of the game.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, a thought's coming to me here. Let's say I'm North America.
Yeah.
You said I could get eliminated.
Yes.
What if I haven't completed?
That is one of the ways you lose the game.
Okay.
So there's only one way to win the game, but there's a few ways to lose the game.
Okay.
And the primary way you lose the game is Dr. Chronos being overrun in the territory he's in by the invaders. The other way is if anybody who hasn't made this card yet loses by their coalition being defeated in a couple of different ways, then there's no chance for victory, and the game is over.
That's interesting, because that's another way, I suppose, for people at the table to go, we all have our own private things we're trying to do here, but I don't really want North America to get wiped off here yet. They haven't finished their objective. We need to help them at least last that long.
Which is one of the most interesting things about playing South America, because it has the first card.
Right.
You generally complete it first round. So some people determine later in the game, South America is not as important to keep alive because they're done with their Chronos project.
Interesting. How do you decide who's going to be which faction? Do you randomly?
It can be decided any way your group decides. Generally, I think the rules say choose, but it also, you can shuffle these consoles upside down. They're all the same on the back, so you can kind of just randomize who gets to play what. And also, I imagine that players, as they play games in a row, will want to try different coalitions because they have different strengths and weaknesses, and each of their setups is a little different.
Okay, well, can we talk now a little bit about the miniatures that we see?
Yes.
Here? Okay, I dropped just a couple more miniatures here on the map. We've got a couple guys swimming in the water, just to show you that we have colors for the other factions as well.
And I have to make a disclaimer.
Yes.
These are resin models we painted based on the same sculpts, because we haven't quite got all of the samples. This is the actual board that's going to come in the game.
Okay.
But a lot of the pieces, we don't have a full, complete set yet, so we're using painted resins.
Sure. So what do the different pieces represent here?
So, most importantly, this is a dropship.
Right.
That's the biggest miniature in the game. And that determines where the bad guys spawn. They are spawn points mechanically during gameplay.
Okay.
This is an invader unit, and you can tell he's a little bigger than that person. This is the Hydra ground forces. And then these guys are the coalition units. They're the guys tasked with defending the Earth against this horrible, horrible situation.
Well, I see from the yellow faction here, South America, they're sitting here with the purple.
Yes.
So are we invading each other? How
No,
does this work?
it's a cooperative game in its heart, so you can move your figures around the board, cross any boundaries, any territories you want, and if you send soldiers to another coalition, then they help that coalition fight.
Okay, so we're going to come over here to take care of these guys, to deal with this problem.
And that's another part of that whole, you're about to die and we can't let you die yet. So we've seen games where there's a guy of every color in North America because North America is on the brink.
Right.
Yeah.
We all have to rally together here. Okay, perfect. Well, you said this is still sort of in production, right? Or being developed, right?
It is coming out in August.
Okay.
Of 2014. We are close to getting final complete samples of everything, but this week, unfortunately, we had not got all the plastics yet.
No, it's looking very impressive. August, are we thinking maybe Gen Con then?
It will be at Gen Con. We always release the games at Gen Con no matter what their actual street date is.
Yes.
But its release date is also in the month of August.
Okay, awesome. Well, listen, thanks again, Will, for coming and sharing this game with us, giving us a really good overview of it. And of course, to all of you, thanks for watching.